Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your time, Bhavneet. Can you please tell us about a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and where you grew up in India?
I'm from Punjab, basically, this small town called Jalandhar.
Mm-hmm.
So my education, my high school, my masters and bachelors, all was from India,
Mm-hmm.
and
Both it.
and it was from this college called Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research.
Mm-hmm.
So my family had a very diverse background in terms, like, not very diverse, I'm sorry. They were basically all from commerce and had different businesses, but I was the first one who chose to pursue science.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I joined some coaching, and I went through coaching, and then I realized that there's this thing called ISER that exists in India. ISER is the short form for Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that college, and that was a Hail Mary for me. So it was a very nice experience, I would say. As in, I would say I was very privileged to be offered a position, to offered a admission there in ISER Mohali. So
So ISER
I-
Mohali is one of the top science institutions in India, right?
yeah, it's sort of like the idea was to have like, we had IITs for the technical education.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Manmohan Singh decided that we needed something for the pure sciences as well, for research in natural sciences, basically. So ISERs were a product of that.
Right. And when did you decide that you wanted to be a scientist? Or, I mean, you said your parents, your other family members were not so science-oriented people, and they were mostly in commerce and other streams. So, was it your own calling, or somebody else influenced you?
Actually, when I joined coaching, I had no idea I really wanted to do it. But my teachers there, one of them is not doctor, Mr. Sanjay Chopra and Mr. Manish. So they helped me decide that I wanted to pursue science. But even then, I did not know that I really wanted to be a scientist. So that was a very recent decision, I think, a year or two back.
And are you happy with your decision?
So far, yes.
Yes. So, what made you decide to come to America?
Come to America. So one of the major reasons was that I wanted to pursue topology in mathematics.
What is topology?
So what is topology? So topology in mathematics, the basic idea is to study to classify different objects, whatever it will be, whether it is group, whether it is numbers or it's spaces. So topology is a study of spaces per se. So we try to classify different type of spaces in topology.
Okay.
So let's say we have a cup, so that is also a space for us. So we wanted to know that what other properties does it have, and how is it different from other spaces, let's say a building.
So, topology led you to come to America?
Yeah, because in India the concentration is the majority concentration of research is in algebra. So there are not a lot of research in topology. So America is big on topology, even Russia is, for that matter, and a lot of other European countries. But another reason I chose America was that in America they have coursework, and I needed a bit more coursework to get through my degree. So
Coursework. Okay, so like
Yeah.
classroom teachings, right?
yeah.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about, you've only been in America for about 2 weeks now, is that right?
Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks.
And this is your first time.
This is my first time.
How do you feel? Are you feeling out of place? Are you totally overwhelmed by the different style of teaching, living in the United States, or you're not feeling anything? What are your thoughts on this?
I think there are two parts to this. So one, I'm definitely homesick, but the two parts are that the living experience is very much different, of course. But I would say the campus experience, the learning experience is not that different from what I had in ISER Mohali, at least. I wouldn't compare it to every other Indian institute or any other Indian school, but I would say that ISER is very much similar to what they have here in US universities. So that was not a big shock to me, but what was really calming, or what was really inviting to me, was that the pace was decided by the students and not by how much syllabus is left. So that is the one big difference which I found in classroom teaching.
Can you
in the
expand on that a
US.
little bit? Like, it's not a syllabus-based teaching in the United States. What do you mean?
Yeah, they do have syllabus. Definitely, they do have syllabus which they want to complete. But in India, at least in most of the courses which I took, the major focus was to complete the parts they wanted to complete instead of like they would pace through it
This is
very
back in
quickly.
India?
Yeah, mostly in India. Yes.
Okay, so they wanted to complete that thing, not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean they were big classes and you can't keep track of every other student there. But in here in these courses, I think they are very calm and want to know that if they have actually learned it or not. So that is the difference I saw. Maybe others might have had a different experience, but that is the experience I've had with my courses in India versus the courses I've had so far in America.
Thank you. So this is one difference you saw or noticed.
Yeah.
And you also said that it's not all that different from either in terms
Yeah.
of how teaching is done or learning is done in the United States. Can
Yeah.
you expand on that a little bit?
I think a lot of this teaching and lot of this classroom experience depends on what relationship you have with your teacher or with your professor or with your peers. So I think that is very similar to what we have had in ISER. So it wasn't a very hierarchical experience in ISER as well. And here too, it is a bit hierarchical, but it's not as much as you would expect.
Can you give me an example?
Um,
Both here and there,
uh,
both in the United States and both in ISER.
Yeah, I understand. So in India, I would say, like if I give example from my school, which was different from not either, but from my high school. So uh, the focus of the teacher, like there was a certain this thing that if the teacher has said something, so that is what it's written on stone, basically. So that
Final thing.
yeah, it's the final thing. So you can't argue much. So, but in ISER as well, we were told to unlearn these things, told to unlearn that just because they are the teachers, just because they have more experience, maybe age-wise, it does not really mean that they know, like they are always correct.
So you
And
found
that is fine.
You found that attitude, that style, that approach helpful.
That was very helpful because it engages, like I feel education is more of a discussion. You cannot do it one way. So unless you really feel at not I'll not say at par, but at least you feel comfortable to actually point out things with your teacher, or you're able to discuss things with your teacher, then that makes a big difference. But that was not very encouraged in high school. It was more of like, yeah, I said this, and you write this in paper. But in ISER and even here, it's more like you're encouraged to come up with ideas. You're encouraged to come up with objections, for that matter. Maybe correct, maybe incorrect.
Your opinion,
Yeah.
right? It's your opinion. Right?
Yeah.
You're encouraged to talk about your opinion.
Exactly.
All right, thank you so much. So you also said that you have also clearly experienced difference in living style here, right?
Yeah.
The living. What can you tell me more about that?
That has happened in
Well,
the
we want to keep the fact, be aware of the fact that you've only been here for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
So in ISER, I would say in ISER and in India in general, so the campus and the students, they lived in a community, I would say. But that feeling of community, that feeling of getting done with classes and meeting friends after classes for chai tea or something, or just hanging out for a while or having discussions and everything, that I couldn't find that in that here. And like after classes or whenever I go home to my roommates, so what would I expect to happen in India, that we would sit together, we would chat for a while, and we'll go to our separate quarters and everything. But I think here people value their personal space way more than what we do in India. I mean, it's not wrong in
It's
any
just
way.
different.
Yeah, it's just different.
And you are struggling with that right now.
Sort of, yes.
Sort of. So you maybe, do you think that the camaraderie, the community feel after classes, after school, on the weekends hasn't happened yet, but that does not necessarily mean that it will not happen at all, right? You
Yeah,
might find your
it might
people.
happen, yeah.
It might happen.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but it comes more naturally and more easier, I think, in India, because it's a very weird way to say it, but like for the introverts especially, I think it will be much easier to find companions to have a social life in India than here, I feel.
Right. You here you have to make an effort,
Yeah.
right? That is true. Yeah. And what else? Are you finding any difference in the weather? Or like, if you forget for a while that you are in a university setting in the United States, can weather make you feel like you're back in Punjab?
I think in the summer months, yeah, sure, Punjab had a very similar weather, but I can't wait for winters right now.
So you mean you're feeling the heat, right?
Yeah, it's way too much.
In more than one way.
Yeah.
Right. Um, what else would you like to say? Suppose if you were to advise another student, although you've only been here for 2 weeks, back in ISER or somewhere in India, another university, another science institute, what kind of things would you tell them to be prepared for, mentally prepared for before they set foot in this country?
I think the most important thing is for them to be ready for discussions, to be ready to ask questions, and to be ready to be asked questions as well. Because
In classroom
in
setting.
classroom setting, or even in general in life as well, because I've seen this thing that there's no, there may not be a very community feeling, that there's not a camaraderie or anything, but people are very jovial here. They say hi to you, they say good morning to you on the road, they will ask how are you and all of these things. So I think, yeah, just be ready to discuss things with people. It's fine, I mean.
It's okay. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, be open. If somebody says to you hello on the street without knowing you, don't be surprised.
Yeah, don't be surprised and don't be rude.
Don't be rude. And say
Yeah.
hello back.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it doesn't hurt you.
It doesn't hurt. And what you said in class, you said be prepared to be asked questions, then also be ready to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about in classroom setting, university setting, or in general?
Mostly in university settings, because we are not very used to be. We are used to be asked questions by our teachers, but when it comes to discussions, I think that does not happen very much. Like among peers, it happens very frequently in India, at least in ISER, I would say. But when it comes with the relationship between a professor and a student, that is very one-sided.
So you're talking about be prepared to be asked questions by the professors here, right?
Yeah.
More directly.
Yeah, more directly. And be prepared to ask the questions, professor, as well. You don't have to just sit there and listen to what they say. You may ask something if you don't understand, or if you don't find it right. I mean, for the professor as well, for you as a T, if you come as a teaching assistant, you may be wrong, and it's fine. You make mistakes. That's why I'm saying be ready to be asked questions.
And
You can't always be right, basically.
correct. And the only way to learn, I mean, I'm asking you, is to ask questions and be confronted, maybe and corrected, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, I think it's funny, but the most of the things I remember, I have a very bad memory, but I especially remember all the things I have been confronted to about.
So that has stuck to you, right?
That has stuck with me.
Very
I mean, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
You at least you.
it's a learning experience
you've
for
learned
everyone.
It. Yeah, you learned it and it's there for you.
Yeah.
What else? You said you were also feeling homesick. Are you homesick for the food or your family? Everything?
Just the people, I think. Yeah. As I said, the community experience. So
Right.
I miss that right now.
So when you said that you lived and studied at ISER, but ISER is also away from your home, right? It's not where you
Yeah.
live, right? So did you feel better after a while, and you hoping that same thing would happen here after a while, like 6 months, maybe 3 months, and you'll get used to being different at a different place?
ISER was a very different experience for me, I would say, because I never felt homesick in ISER, and even I would say that a lot of times I felt more at home in ISER, because a lot of times there's this thing when you go somewhere and you're thinking of going back home. Whenever I was somewhere, I wouldn't think of going back home to my hometown, but I would most of the time think, yeah, I want to go back to my hostel room in ISER. So that was a very homely feeling there.
How did it happen? Is it because of the people, or they made you feel comfortable?
Yeah, the people. I think the community feeling again, because it's very homely, it's very welcoming, the people are very welcoming. Even, I would say, I'm not saying that they come up and talk to you every once in a while, but the community they have created there, the feeling that you're part of the family there, that is missing here, but it was very much prevalent in ISER at least.
In terms of the quality of the teachers, the academic prowess, and the qualification of the teachers, it's at par there and here so far?
Yeah, they're brilliant.
There or here, both?
Bo-
Both.
Both, yeah.
So-
ISER has brilliant researchers and brilliant academicians, but yeah, again, the problem comes when you talk about funding and political ideologies and all of these things. So when you get into that, then it becomes a bit messy because India hasn't been funding the pure science research as much as I think US have been. So that makes a lot of difference in the terms of quality of education that you get there. ISER, and again I would say ISER is different from most other colleges, I would say, in terms that it has more funding, it has brilliant academicians, like brilliant teachers and all of that. But yeah, it has still suffered from the lack of funding.
Which you find is in the United States is not the same. It's different here. They have the means to fund your education, right? And
I mean, a very simple example would be the funding that they give to, like the stipend they give to PhDs in India. So most of the big colleges, most of the prominent colleges or institutes, they are located in the big metropolitans and they are very, very expensive. And when you give a subpar stipend to them, I don't think you can, like, it's my feeling that you can't produce quality research, or you'll always be more stressed. I mean, people do produce quality research, but they will always be more stressed than I think what PhDs or other students might be here, because I mean, if you have to worry about what you're getting for dinner and you can't really focus on a problem that you have right now, if you're really free and fine, like, yeah, I'll spend this, I'll order this and all of that, if you're fine with money, then I think it makes a lot of difference
what are your hopes?
stress-wise.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What are your hopes from this education in the next few years in the United States? So you hope to become
terms
a
of?
PhD? Like, what are you aiming at? You want to be a doctor? You want to earn a doctorate, right?
Yeah, I want to earn a doctorate.
And you want to teach?
I would like to teach. I love teaching actually, but I would see where I get the next position at.
Okay. So right now you want to focus on what's immediate, right? What's that?
Yeah, because the thing is, a lot of things can change in 5 years. I mean, a lot changed for me in ISER in 5 years. I think a lot can change here as well. But I'm sure about getting a PhD, and I'm sure about pursuing this field of research. That I'm sure about.
So you're feeling very hopeful
Yeah.
and optimistic.
Yeah, so far.
Thank you. Thank you very well. Well, I wish you good luck and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for your time here.
Yeah, thank you so much.